Galimera, Galispera, Galinichta. It is the day after the day that was yesterday, and bragging rights are still in full effect, and the buzz has not been killed, even by pundits and media. And the special guest train just keeps on rolling here, squaddies. Let's rock and roll.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
The Velvet Voice is back at Squad Central, and we are delighted. Clive Palmer, Arsenal Vision podcast, the voice of reason on The Overlap, the voice of reason on Inside Gunners on TalkSport, basically the voice of reason. Welcome back to Squad Central.
Hello, Sophie and crew. How are you all?
I think they're doing good now you're here. They've been waiting for this. I had so many messages because we were scheduled to talk last week, and so they're all, they love you. So you're here, and we're going to talk. And by the way, that is a very sexy tracksuit top you are wearing.
Yeah. So when I get it, I got this one for Lisbon. Actually, I wanted to have something just special to wear, and I just got this, and I got the last one on my size. So there you go.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Now, unlike the refereeing in the Premier League this season, Clive, I do have to be consistent. So if we're late, we each get a yellow card. Even the great David Ornstein was yellow carded just a couple of weeks ago. So one for you and one for me. And we're both in the book, but for good reasons, unlike some other bookings for the Arsenal this season. Right, let's get cracking. Firstly, I've got 5 top talking points for you.
Okay.
But I want you to just take your analytical head off and talk to me about being a fan yesterday, being at the game, and how you experienced and digested that and what it meant for you, just purely from a fan perspective.
Yeah, there are games and then there are games against the big six, right? And they are different. I went with my son and daughter yesterday, and it was just nice. It was just a nice feeling around the ground. Went into the Tollington. You've been in there, so if you know what I'm talking about, you can imagine what it's like in there. You couldn't even see the floor, let alone get across it. You know, it was just absolutely packed, and always gets you in a good mood. And I had a good feeling about the game. I was just really excited about going, and I thought it was a major moment. And obviously, the pressure Liverpool not losing against Bournemouth or dropping points puts a little bit of extra pressure on this. But I never felt it in the same way. Did a couple of shows last week with some really smart sort of City fans, and they were worried about the game. And sometimes, you know, as we know, we all know our teams better than everyone else, and they were worried about their midfield, and they were concerned. And so basically, I sort of got some comfort from that, because we still see City as like this aura team that we struggle to maybe. And so yeah, I have to say the game was just absolutely fantastic. You know, the way it developed, the feelings you had at halftime to just 10 minutes after halftime to how you felt at the end was so stark, so different. And it's almost like a realization that we really have arrived here. You know, I do an instant reaction, you know what I do for the podcast, and I mentioned Tim. Tim's my mate, you know, Tim Stillman, my mate. He's been to a few games, shall we say, right? And that's an understatement. And he's been there with the 5-0 away when we were embarrassed. And I just felt those fans who do the leg work, do the travelling, I really thought they had their moment back against them. And yeah, Tim went to both those games. Well, he went to the ladies' game. Couldn't go to the men's game. That's what he chose to do. So he saw the women's team win 4-3, and then he's watched it remotely in the men's games. So he had a fantastic day. You know,
it was great. Yeah. I wanted to make sure that I acknowledge that we didn't just score 5 goals. We scored 9 goals against Manchester City yesterday. And Albert and Demian will be back this week with an Arsenal women's show where we wax lyrical about our team, because that was a huge win as well.
That's it.
All right, Clive. so massive. And Renee Sleggers is doing an amazing job.
She's a star, by the way. So she's a star. Just watch her develop. has she developed during this role? It's going to be so interesting to see how she rebuilds that team, where she goes, what direction she goes, what profile of players she brings in. But you can see her developing it as a leader. She's really prepared herself for this. 35-year-old woman for that team. I think she's exactly what's required. The energy she brings. I'm watching her really, really closely. I'm so pleased what they actually took her on.
Yeah, I'm so happy too that she, there was a part of me at a time where I'm like, man, we had the opportunity maybe in the summer and whiffed on Bonpastor, but I think things happen for a reason. Casey Stoney was never really kind of in the mix, in the sense of, taking the team forward, and the relationship between her and the players and that comfortability factor. But also she unleashed their creativity again. She really unleashed their confidence again. And it's really been fun to watch the Arsenal women's team play over the last few weeks, certainly since she's taken over. It's great. It's really good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, let me get stuck into my top 5 talking points, and we'll riff off because this is always how I love our conversations. There are a couple of things we spoke about last time you were here that I'm going to circle back with you. But I want to start at the very tippy top, because in a season where we've faced adversity, we've had challenges, refereeing decisions haven't necessarily gone our way. We're not making excuses. We're just calling things as we see them. We had Keith Hackett on, who's kind of backing up a lot of what had happened. There has been a wonderful positive narrative that I hope, and we all hope, will live and breathe forever and ever and ever. And that is the emergence of Miles Lewis-Skelly, the emergence of Waneri, and the evolution of Hayland. And thank you to Kazoo Designs for this. The evolution of Hayland and what it means. And I know you're a student of, the youth and especially the Arsenal Academy players, to see this come to fruition, not in a game against Preston, in a cup game, but against Manchester City and one of the greatest managers that has ever been a manager in the game. It is the story of the season so far for us, and I just wondered how you digested them yesterday. Your thoughts on Skelly, all of it.
Yeah. See, sometimes when you're in something, you don't realize the historic moment. I'll be straight with you. I said it yesterday. When Miles scored that goal, I like choked up. He was at my end. I could see it. And that basically meant the game was over. And they're celebrating right down below us. And I thought, oh my God, what's going on here? Literally, what is going on here? I wasn't sure about him starting. Hands up, I thought, I know what Haaland likes to do. And I thought, well, maybe it's not right for him, this game. Bring him on a bit later. Well, how wrong was I? I mean, he bodied him in the box, just like he bodied Morgan Rogers the week before. When you think about what happened to him last week, he was basically one of the most famous players in the country due to the fact that he tripped someone over and suddenly found himself in a media storm and people writing about him negatively. And he's only 18. He's got to deal with that. He's got to deal with the fact that he then comes off at Wolves, and the guy that comes on, that he's competing with, comes on and scores the winning goal in a 1-0 win. He's thinking, well, I should be on the pitch still. He has to deal with that, then deal with the fact he didn't start in the week against Europe, and then comes into this game, which I do think he was suited for in hindsight, due to the fact that City play very wide wingers. I think he's better on the touchline, right on the extremities, than, say, Calafiori is. It's going to be horses for courses with those two. That's not a bad choice, is it? To be honest.
Beautiful.
And so what? Obviously, we can all see how he plays. I don't need to describe him to everybody, because the people in your comments are pretty smart. They can see everything. But what I want to say about him is, he is a one-on-one combat merchant. He is all about that. The battle, the moment, the physical. And he's got total confidence in himself. And so that comes out. When you feel physically confident and you had a technical upbringing that he's had, then the rest is about how you apply your talent in the most extreme pressure moments. That doesn't seem to be a problem to him when it comes to personality, right? So to watch him sort of hold off Morgan Rogers, that really shook me, actually, because Morgan Rogers is really strong and a really good player. And then to see him box out Haaland on the back post and that cross, and Haaland thought he was going to smash him, and he just didn't do it. He couldn't move him, mate. It's like running into a wardrobe, into a fridge. And he just ran into it. He just stood there, and Haaland hit the floor, and he's running off with it. I'm thinking, oh man, if you can do that, you're going to be fine, you know. And just to see him develop is really, really good. Just to talk about, I'm talking about Miles first, but just think about it. So just think about it, right? When Emile Smith-Rowe and Bukayo Saka came into our lives, we sort of knew a bit about Emile. He'd been around, been to Leipzig, come back, you know, had some loans. So we sort of knew about him. We all watched a few tunes in curling goals in the youth team, so we knew he was there. Saka we sort of knew about him when he arrived. He was never going anywhere. But these two, we was in LA in the summer. We saw them play. We thought, oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. I'm a big believer in preseason. That's why I invest time into it, because you learn things. Well, this preseason, we saw Miles and we saw Ethan play. And what did we see? We saw Smith-Rowe and Fabio Vieira disappear from the club. And these decisions are made, and people have complained about them, you know. And but now, no one's complaining after yesterday, are they? No one's complaining. You have to make that call. You have to create pathways. You've got to convince people that you really got their careers in their best interest, and you've got to give them room to play. And it's obvious if they're around the first team and they've got that level of control of the ball and personality, you can't ignore that talent. You have to play it. It's fantastic.
You say something interesting, because, you know, and I tell the listeners this quite a bit, when I saw them play in the States, you know, you see players, the way they touch the ball, the way they move, but also the way they carry themselves. And obviously the potential world-class talent is there for us to see. I don't think I've been more excited about a left back since Ashley Cole. And I know I said a dirty word to everybody, but I don't care what anyone says. Ashley Cole is the greatest left back that's ever played for Arsenal, my humble opinion. Now, I don't want to go too far down the line, but those players that we keep talking about and referring to, the Arsenal DNA, Mikel Arteta's 2.0, the reason why I always stand up for Kai Havertz, why Declan Rice is so important to the team, Gabriel, Saliba, is to see an 18-year-old have the confidence to do the Haaland celebration is part of what I love about Skelly and Waneri, that mentally looks so different to Patino, even Maitland-Niles, even Reece Nelson, even Emile Smith-Rowe. That level of how they think as a footballer, but also their confidence and how they celebrate the game, their team themselves, Clive, I think is this class of Hayland, those two, they have the ability to reach Saka's levels. And I don't think I'm being melodramatic. I truly believe that for the first time, I'm seeing, wow, these two players may actually get to Saka's level one day. But it's this here that I've seen that separates them from anything else that we've seen before.
Absolutely. And as Arsene Wenger says, that's the last bit you do with a player, the roof of the house, right? The roof of the house is the mentality, and it's part of your four corners. It's part of the psychology angle of the game, and from a coaching perspective, what you have to develop. And so physically, technically, psychologically, and mentally, they are right there. They are right there. I always say this, though, because there's lots of talented players out there. Loads of players. We all know someone from school. He's going to be a pro. Got to be a pro, because you see their ability, right? But it's application of that ability under pressure. That's the key thing. What do you do when there are 35 million Arsenal fans online looking at you? What do you do when there's 60,000 people on a Sunday afternoon watching you play and the ball comes into your feet? Do you still want it? Can you still produce? Is your first touch still soft? Is it putting you into a position of opportunity where you can maximize your skills? Or is your body become closed, like Akanji's first touch? By the way, he's got medals, so I'm not picking on him. Akanji's first touch that allowed him to get robbed because he lost his picture and he got robbed, and one mistake and it's a goal, right? And that's the level that we're talking about. Lose the ball in central areas, lose the ball. Doesn't matter. You're going to get punished by the best players in the world. And they're able to go out there and able to be trusted. They're able to deliver. And I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. We've been watching for a while come through the England track. You can see they're on the way. You can see they're coming. But for me, it's the confidence. And where does that confidence, where does it come from? It comes from practice, it comes from training, it comes from the right level of development. And they just managed to bring that into the first team. And they've grown, physically grown, so since the summer.
Oh, I couldn't even, it's
they've
unreal.
grown. And that was the thing, that's the last bit. And there's 18 and 17, us blokes, we don't stop growing until we're 2021. So it's going to be a couple of years. Look at Saka at 18. What did he look like? Look at the old pictures. What did he look? Look what he looks like now. He's chiseled out of mahogany, mate. He's just chiseled, isn't he? And what's going to happen to these kids? What's going to happen? Where they're going to end up? What they're going to tell us when they're fully grown? What position is going to select? What's going to happen to them? And I think it's so exciting. Generational, though. I think this is just happened too often. You know, this is generational stuff, and we're very fortunate.
So just to finish up on Waneri with you too, because, and riffing off the mental, is I didn't have on my bingo card, I've said this to the squaddies, that Miles Lewis-Skelly was going to solidify, you know, a place in this starting 11 this season. And, you know, through injury comes, and through adversity come opportunities. And that's definitely the case with Lewis-Skelly. Waneri, maybe if you look back, does Mikel regret not playing him when Odegaard was injured, but was he ready? I'm not going to question the manager, but I am as well, because when you see him play the way he does, it's so special. Waneri, not only talent-wise, seeing him finish the way he did in the Champions League, I mean, it's like copy-paste. It was like, you know, watching Saka yesterday, the goal he took, the confidence. But for me, his mental, knowing that his buddy, you know, and they love each other, but to overcome kind of like, I was going to be the guy that broke into the first team, and Lewis-Skelly's getting a lot of the plaudits. That too is another corner he has to turn. And my goodness, talk about turn that corner and score the goals you did in the Champions League and the Premier League, Clive.
Yeah, he's about goals, isn't he? A lot more, Ethan is. I think I just said to earlier on, I said, watching some of his interviews when he's coming up for the youth teams, etc., he talks about goals a lot. You know, he sees his measure as goals. And you see Arteta talk about him as a 9, and that could happen because the goals are telling you. You know, just look back at these youth videos again. They're easy to find. And look at the different types of finishes that he has. It's not just his curling shot. That's just where he is right now. He plays 10 for England on that right-hand side, and he sticks it into the top corner. We've seen a few of them for Arsenal already. But you also seen when he has played 9 for the youth team across the penalty box, one-touch finishes, volleys, bounce goals. He's got the lot, mate. He's got the lot. And so I feel with him, it's quite clear. I mean, can you imagine this? Do you remember when we got to Youth Cup final, he was playing false 9 and doing well? I was moaning about that, by the way. I thought, why is he playing false? Why is he not playing 10? What do I know, right? So the club are obviously developing him around the goal. And he was potentially going to go to Chelsea or City. They gave him a lot more money in the offers. And these are the fine margins, right? Could you imagine it if he went there? Could you imagine how we'd all feel?
Sickening.
We'd be devastated. Yeah. You know, there are young players leaving the club. The club are not dumb, right? They keep the ones they want to keep, right? So, and that's the truth. If you do lose the odd one, you have to let them go because if they're not focused or dedicated to stay. Chelsea offered more money. He decided to stay, and look at the rewards he's getting now. His next contract will dwarf the one he would have got at Chelsea as a young player. You know, so yeah, I'm massively supportive of them. So interesting to see how they develop positionally, but it'd be interesting to see how the rest of the squad really adapt to their ascension because they're on the way up. How does that change our longer term strategy on recruitment? What roles will they play? So I'll just give an example of something. I said this to Elliot. If you think about Ethan right now, so we saw him play in the summer. We saw him play 10, didn't we, Sophie? And in one of the games he swapped over, I think against Bournemouth, he flipped over to play on the left-hand side of the front, like a left 8. We've seen him play right wing. We also had a brief period as false 9 in one of the substitute games. So we've got another player that can do that in Trossard. Right, that's what he does. He plays false 9, he plays wide, he sometimes can play a second striker, and he has played in the 8. So Trossard's a 30-year-old international. Contract renewals coming up. Doing really well. I thought he was fantastic against City. Absolutely fantastic. Now, you're the recruitment guy. What do you do? Because Ethan is developing into at this point of his career, he could develop into a Trossard profile-wise. Forget the ability. Don't match the players. One's lefty, one's a righty. I know the score. But when you're doing your squad depth charts, that's who he could replace in the squad. You take a sell and you bring in something maybe more specific. I'm not saying we should sell Trossard. I'm just giving you the examples of how squad building could change. Look at Zinchenko now. Everyone's thinking, well, sorry, mate, you got to go. You have to go because this guy can do your role in midfield and left back with more solidity, very similar profile, maybe not quite the incisive passing yet, but he's 18. He's coming, isn't he? He played about 7-8 games. So you're projecting forward. Zinchenko, you got to go. Tina, you're going. That's no problem. You see you later. Tomiyasu, what's going to happen to you now if you get back to fitness? This is how things change. When a player pushes through, he forces you to change your thought process. And that's all you can do when you're a young player. Force people to change.
Yeah, I find that part of the game really fascinating because it's kind of, you know, there are going to be a lot of fans that will have an implosion tonight because we're not signing anybody in January. But also football, as much as you can have strategic objectives and, you know, 3-year plans, whatever it is, football's fluid as well. And, you know, you talked about positions too. I mean, Lewis Skelly's natural position, midfield, he's playing left back. You would think he's played there his entire life. Now, those two players, Clive, have they tinkered with, well, actually, we don't have to go get cover for Saka now. Do we really need to invest in this market 60 million for a number 9 or a backup to Kai?
Yeah.
Do you think that's what's happened in this window? Those two single players alone have maybe changed the trajectory of what the club were going to do, even though we know we put in a bid for Watkins, you know, all these other conversations. The reality is Arsenal just aren't going to put band-aids over things like they used to.
Yeah, but once you do a band-aid job, it takes a long time to unwind from it. And people know you've made a mistake. I mean, I don't mind saying I like the look of Joshua Zirkzee when he was in the summer. Wasn't sure we should buy him, but I quite like the look of him. I look at him now and think, oh, I don't want that player near our club because he's not quite good enough. You know, Højlund, 72 million. Not quite good enough, is he really? You know, they're getting beat 2-0 at home. I'm not sure if either of them played. Right, started, sorry. I love all the players, as you well know. I'm always out there looking at them. I'm always looking at them. But when it comes to getting them, I can sometimes find fault. I think Ethan's growth has really maybe looked after the Saka thing, but he still has put a huge emphasis on Havertz. Because I think we haven't got a replacement for him. We can use Trossard to do the false 9 thing, but Havertz is unique with his physical profile. So I watched his game yesterday, outstanding. Even though he missed that chance, and that weighed on me heavily until he scored his goal.
Me too. He's my second point. I'm glad that you've swung through to Havertz, and that's kind of like where I wanted to take, you know, the January transfer window conversation and to Havertz, who I do think is one of the most misunderstood players who's ever put on an Arsenal shirt.
Yeah, because what we haven't got, he's suffering for the fact of a missing profile in the club. So Havertz sort of back up with Jesus, and he's not really a 9. Havertz is really a 9.5, isn't he? He's like a Robin Van Persie style without the banging shot. You know, so he's that style of player. But I think he's all-round player. I mean, I thought Match Today did a great, I don't know if you saw it last night, Danny Murphy did a great bit of analysis on him. And you have to call that good analysis. I thought he was really, really good. He showed his work rate and exit passes. He showed him tackling back. He showed his goal. He showed his miss. But he also showed his value. And that's how we all see him. The problem is not Havertz per se. It's the fact that we haven't got that lethal 9 in the group. Sometimes Havertz could play with, and sometimes Havertz could rest. Because a tired Havertz cannot finish. I tell you now, he just can't. I've seen it in my own eyes. The Manchester United game was a great example. He can't finish, so we need to support him. So as a club, we haven't got a true 9. So because we haven't got a true 9, we then look at him and judge him as a true 9. He's never been a true 9. He's a very hard-working focal point forward that helps his teammates and makes them look better. because he's always available for them. He arrives into the box. His timing is stunning. On his goal, on his goal yesterday, when he made the run, I thought, don't waste your time. We're winning. Don't do it. Don't overlap him. You're not going to catch him anyway. He catches him. Then he takes the overlap. And he stops back, checks, side netting like a bullet. And I'm thinking, at that moment in time, not many people in that ground wanted a new centre forward. But we do understand. We're not stupid. We know we're one body light, just to allow people to stay fresh, to stay injury free. And we are running a risk if we don't add that body. And it looks like it's moment in time we're not going to, which is a shame, because it is a shame, but I also don't want a dud. I really don't. That's worse. Getting something.
A dud that affects your business in the summer. I mean, there's consequences here.
Hey, look, we're not, I don't know if you noticed, so we're not exactly the most shyest fans online. If we have a dud in our team, we're not too shy about letting people know about it. So we're quite opinionated. So when it's not right, it's not right. And we're going to say so. I mean, a lot of people are not having Havertz at all. Even after yesterday, they won't focus on the goal, they're focused on the miss. Well, and that's their right. They want to do that, right? So for me, I like this style of forward. But then it does put an emphasis on our wide players to score. So when Saka's here, no one's really looking at Havertz because Saka's just sticking in the top corner, right? So, but when Saka's not there, we then look elsewhere. Who's going to step up? And I feel we stepped up collectively, like 5 different goal scorers yesterday, all open play. That's what we do. And I was speaking to Tim and Elliot, and I want to say this to your listeners, right? We have to embrace the way we do things. It's not the same as everybody else. We have to embrace our way of doing things, how we promote people. Yes, some people can say we're projecting forward always to next season, but this is what we do. This is our way. This is our way of playing, our way of recruiting. And I think sometimes as a fan base, we need to accept who we are a lot more. Make sure we celebrate these moments a lot more. Don't worry about people telling you not to celebrate. None of that rubbish. I loved how we did yesterday. It may look arrogant to some people, but I want people to embrace it, embrace the criticisms out there, embrace them, because they only make us bigger. They only make us better. They should bring us together more closely. And I just so hope we can sign a player today, not because I think I don't want to sign a bad player, I want to sign a good one. But also, I don't want that unity to disappear that we had for 24 hours. Because it could literally change, couldn't it? In a flick of a switch, it could change. We're one hamstring away from, Kai Havertz hamstring away from feeling really, really bad about things, right? So, but yeah, I want people to really embrace where we are, our way of doing things, and be proud of it. Be proud of it. It's not the same as everybody else, but it's who we are. And when we're seeing a 17 or 18-year-old running around in that pitch, that's who we are. Right? That's Arsenal. That's what we do. And it's not the same as Man City. It's not the same as Liverpool. It's what we do.
I love that. It's a drop the mic moment. And a lot of the times, it's really funny because I was thinking about this as a woman, when you get older, it's tougher to kind of keep the weight off. Sometimes things start going south instead of pointing north. And I'm just being really open and honest here. And you struggle to embrace the new you because you want to kind of hold on to what you used to be. And I think that's human nature too. I think a lot of men probably feel that way as well. But embracing what you are, who you are, and is so important for happiness.
Yeah.
And I think some of our fans struggle with just the purity. I think we've lost the purity of the football, the feeling of being a fan and loving a club, supporting. There's a lot of fair weather fans out there too. And I think Super Kev helped me evolve into the mindset, because there was a time where I was a little angrier, I think, not too angry, but I just couldn't understand Mikel. I didn't understand why the club weren't just throwing money. Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? And, Kev would always be, it's the players. And I'd be like, it's got to be the manager as well. And I think even experiences, you kind of think to yourself, wow, I love football. There's things that are bigger than football as well. But I think as you mature as well, you learn to kind of realize what being a football supporter means versus just focusing on, we didn't sign Gyökeres, we didn't sign this person, we didn't sign that person. So I love what you say, because that's something that I feel like I've been embracing more as an Arsenal supporter.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in you can't watch football and make it a referendum on the manager every single week, right? Because I promise you now, you're going to find something to have a go at him for if you want to. You could have made that substitution 10 minutes earlier. We need to move him on. If you want to watch football that way, you're really missing a lot. You're missing a lot of the game. I watched that game very closely yesterday, and the coaching levels from both managers were just top class, mate. The adjustments, how they move people around, how they tried to create space in the middle, how they took gambles, played their centre mids out wide on occasion, left big cavernous spaces, and then passed through that space. Foden tried it, got nabbed because Partey hid behind the referee and jumped out the alleyway and then scored. So it was just stunning to watch, right? So we're on the right side of it, and we win. And I don't see much Arteta praise today. I see Arsenal praise. I don't see much Arteta praise. I thought he was brilliant.
I'm going to get to him for you. Because he's on my list. Before I get to Mikel, I want to talk a little bit about Declan, because he didn't start off the season well. You could see the fatigue. The guy was spent, carrying an injury, his toe. I mean, I feel like this guy is a true warrior of football, but also his leadership. And it's funny, after the post-game show yesterday, where there were a few listeners was like saying Thomas Partey makes Declan look better. And in my mind, I'm like, well, that's a good thing, because you want players to make other players look better. That's what partnerships are all about. He seems to have clicked into a different gear over the last 4 or 5 weeks, Clive.
Yeah.
And when we keep talking about the importance of Saliba, Saka, this is the second time I think we've beaten Manchester City without Saka. There's certain players that work in the shadows. And I think Kai Havertz, I say that about him all the time. Talk to me about what you're seeing with Declan right now.
Yeah, so the debate around Declan Rice, what is easier, 6 or an 8? I prefer him in a role where he needs to do 2 jobs, right? So he's a bit of a Roy of the Rovers type player. Stick a cape on him, give him 2 jobs, and ask him to clean the dressing rooms afterwards as well, and he'll probably do it, right? So, and that's his personality. That's his default. He wants to be responsible, and you can always tell. You can always tell with him. I've said it many times. When we're winning 2-3-0 easy, he'll have a 6.5 out of 10 game. When it's a big game, or when we're down to 10 men like against Wolves, he steps up then. So he steps up in adversity all the time. He's watching for England. He's been a common trait if you're watching him closely. When it gets hard, he gets better. And that is your comment there says that's captain style stuff. He recognises the moment when to step into the game. When that game got hot at 1-1, honestly, from that moment on, him and Thomas Partey just took over that game. They took it over. They just went up another level. I think the balance between them two is excellent. Marino came in. Everyone thought it was going to be Rice, Marino, Odegaard. That may be the case next year, but it ain't this year. It ain't this year. And I just thought the two of them were excellent. The complementary parts of their game, the way Partey can slow the rhythm down, he plays to a rhythm and a bass. Honestly, I love the way he sort of controls that drum beat from the base of the team. Drops in sometimes. Him and Odegaard dropped in together to make sure we can build the play. And Rice just there on the periphery, waiting to just snaffle into them. He was the one that presses in. He's the one that accelerates, sprints forward like lightning, reading the path, takes it, 2 passes, we're in, getting shots on goal, totally unsettled them at the back door. When we drop into a deep block, he's right there, defending, defensively aware. We can all see he can pass it. There was a great video out there of some young freestyle guys that were doing a video with Declan Rice about 4 or 5 years ago. That when we were signing him, everyone was looking at all the old videos of Declan Rice. And you see his technique in those videos, what he's doing with the ball, he's shooting, he's crossing. And that's what's become really, really clear now, isn't it? He's ball striking, he's right up there with the very, very best. He takes corners like David Beckham. He's going to be scoring the edge of the area soon. He's got so much more, and I'm so pleased that he opened his mind up to not just being a 6, an English style defensive midfielder that sits in front of the back four and protects centre backs. Well, he can do that in his sleep. In his sleep, honestly, in his sleep. What he's developing now is understanding his starting position, not be too high too early, travel up the pitch with the ball, so we travel up as a unit, switch the point attack when you need to, but carry it when you need to. Thomas Partey, Odegaard, they don't carry it so much, they pass it through the lines. He carries it through the lines, he puts pressure on the ball. That's exactly what we wanted to do on this day, where we wanted to high press them. I think he was brilliant in this game. He's been brilliant for the last few weeks. And I genuinely feel, and I've always felt this, I think he's the best midfielder in the country. Simple as. There's nothing that's going to tell me otherwise. And I've always felt he had more ability than Rodri. He hasn't got the medals. He's got more ability. Rodri plays in a system where his role is clearly defined. It's not as multi-layered and multifactored as Rice's, but Rodri scored a goal in the Champions League final. So Rice has got things to stick on his CV. You cannot say he's better than Rodri because he hasn't done it yet. You know, but from a pure skill set point of view, he's well on the way. He's well on the way. He's got 2-3 years to get to what Rodri did at 28, 29. He's just turned 25, 26. Really. He's got a couple of years to go. This is his winning time moment, definitely.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? The measuring stick, I feel like sometimes for us is a lot different. Like Harry Kane is considered a world-class striker, and of course the numbers speak, but he hasn't really won anything of note, but he's still in that category. And for Declan Rice, it's like, oh, he's got to win something big with Arsenal. I mean, you know, he drove West Ham to a European trophy. I don't care what people think about that trophy. You still have to face the teams in front of you, you know, play big boy football and lead a team. And he's done that. Real quick before we move to the next one, do you keep that partnership going, Clive? Or do you let Partey go?
I think we let Partey go. And it's just other things, shall we say. Yeah. So I think we let Partey go.
Yeah. Okay.
And but as a player, I really like that balance. But the Zubimendi discussion is an interesting one if we were to get him.
Are you a fan of Zubimendi?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I can't stop talking about it. Don't get me started. We'll
save that one. We'll save that one. We'll save that one. Yeah.
I'm a fan. I hope it happens. I'm a fan. And you're going to get two midfielders on the same timeline, 26 years of age. Get them signed up and just sit back for 4 years.
I know my hairs just stand on end when I think about it, because I'm a huge fan too. And when it happens, we'll definitely get you back and talk about that one. Right. There's nothing more I love than unsung heroes. And sure, this player has been, you know, given his flowers. Early on, it was one of those, it's probably my biggest I got it wrong moment. And I love to say it whenever I have the opportunity to do so. I did so again yesterday. I've done it a lot this season. I did it quite a bit last season. And I just feel like David Raya has been immense this season and has made some really important saves, but also just his overall confidence and how he handles himself. I think there were a couple of tricky moments, maybe at Fulham, a couple of saves to his left, you know, low. But that's just nitpicking. Are you a fan? Do you feel like he is the goalkeeper of the future? And how important were his saves yesterday, let alone kind of this season?
Yeah, the first save off the corner from Cardiol was like shocking that he made that save. And I think Arteta spoke to maybe some of the fortune went away in this game. I could see what he could mean because it was a deflected shot that Raya saved also in the first half. On Savino. So we go in 1-0 up, but we weren't super confident. But Raya always gives us a chance to readdress things. So we go in 1-0, though we conceded soon after. I think he's educated me. The manager's done me on this one completely, because when Ramsdale was being, you know, pushed backwards, I thought to myself, well, you know what, they're going to play, they're going to alternate, they're going to rotate, and this is the way forward, blah, blah, blah. I convinced myself in my galaxy brain. I thought, that's not the way forward. But then you started to watch the games, and you thought, we're not as controlled when Ramsdale plays. We're just not. And then you see how the players use him. We basically, so if we have 11 footballers on the pitch, don't we? And when we need to use him high in the back line, we just do. We just then we get numerical superiority, and out we go, right? Everything is about the spare man, you know, and that's all about on the ball stuff, and he makes that spare man. His distribution is perfect. His agility and bounding off the floor is brilliant. He takes crosses, so he does proactive goalkeeping. It stops problems where they start. And the only issue he has, he probably plays too much because he's now playing for Spain. He's playing for us every minute. He was out last week. Was that a rest or was it a true injury? I don't know. But he needs that freshening up. And so he needs support, really, because it's that mental freshness he needs. It's not so much the kilometres he's actually covering. It's the mental sharpness you need to have to be accurate and quick. And he's managing to do it. He said something that his career started when he came to Arsenal. That's a massive statement. Right now, he's playing for Arsenal. We're second in the league, third in the Champions League. He's playing for Spain. Well, they're king of the hill, aren't they? He's managed to see us, got that position. He's right there, 29, in his peak. Going to be in his peak for 3-4 years. Genius signing. Honestly, a genius signing. The other
money
guy
as well.
Genius signing. He's completely transformed what we do. And again, got to give credit where it's due, right? Because I railed against it.
Me too.
You know? I railed against it until I saw it. And then I became his biggest supporter before he'd even settled, because I could then see the tactical side of things.
I didn't do that, Clive.
Yeah. Well, I sit in my season tickets place and we have a discussion. And when Real played against Spurs, he made a save, and then he sort of had a problem on one of their goals at Madison, crossed for Son to score. And he looked small. Sophie looked small, didn't look right. And I'm thinking, he's not going to work out for us. He looks scared of his own shadow. And then you see him developing, and you think, so actually that game is probably the biggest game of his career, because he hadn't really been exposed playing for Brentford. And once he settled into the environment and found confidence that he was the man, he's just gone up and up and up. And this year, he could easily be our player of the season. Easily. You know, because while other people have been in and out of form, him and Gabriel maybe, and they've gone up in our estimation. So really good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's someone that we hadn't talked about too much, and just really has been special. Okay, so let's get to talking point number 5. Plus, there's 450 of you just here on YouTube, a couple thousand across all of our live platforms. Please do hit the like button. Let us know what you think of the show, and if you're listening on replay, please do comment in the YouTube comment section. Talking point number 5. You mentioned that no one's really talking about Mikel Arteta today, but I really wanted to talk about him with you, because the last time we chatted, I asked you if you felt Mikel had evolved as a manager when in adversity, and you felt like he had. You also felt that, of course, there's always room for improvement. I thought this was his signature win. I thought this is actually the best ever result at the Emirates.
Yeah.
My favourite half of football for sure, above any North London derby, other games against top clubs. To me, it feels like this season he's really grown as a manager. If I have a gripe, it would be playing Thomas Partey at right back when you see what he does in midfield. But then, you know, my good friend Tom Canton will say, well, who's he going to play there? So
yeah, he's forced to do it.
He was forced to do it. There was one game where he could have played Kivior at centre back instead of Timber, but fine, doesn't matter.
Could have done, but we saw Kivior the week after, didn't we? And being pulled
Doesn't
out of defence
either.
against Villa, he just goes walkies. So he goes walkies.
Now, some fans think I'm a lunatic where I say the title race isn't over. Liverpool could still come into adversity. You never know what happens. You know, there could be an injury. They haven't faced anything like we have so far this season. Last season, we were very lucky. Let's call it as we see it, right? I think Mikel's grown up a lot as a manager this season, and I don't feel like I'm overstating it. And I also think that it's tough for us with the fine margins now to not make any errors. We've got to win every single game, which is so hard to do in the Premier League anyway, Clive. But I kind of dream as a fan, and I'm allowed to do that, whether others like it or not, that there's going to be this Anfield 89 2.0 moment. And this is going to be a signature season, not only for these players, but this manager. Talk to me a little bit about Mikel this season, from the red cards to the injuries to beating, his guy 5-1.
Yeah, I think there's two sides of the ledger on this one. So I think if you want to look at it from a pure coaching perspective, I think he's been better this season than any other. And the reason why, he's had more adversity to coach around. And when you're coaching around adversity, you have to make more decisions. You have to make more team selections when you haven't got the chance for any consistent selection. And when you have that, it creates discourse amongst us. We say, well, why is he playing this player there? Why is he playing that player there? And then what we're not really clear on is the fitness of these players, how much load they have, why he's taking them in a certain position where they may have to run less, knowing how many minutes they have to go. I think it was far easier last season when it was all about quite a consistent selection, apart from losing Timber and Party for most of the season. But he had cover, and we could cover that situation up by overplaying Ben White, for example. And we had a very fit Declan Rice, so we overplayed him as well. And we managed to get through and win the 16 of last 18. But it wasn't quite enough. This year, he's had none of that consistency, losing major pillars from the team that completely define our identity about how we attack, particularly on the right-hand side, where that right-hand side unit has completely gone. With Odegaard, Saka, and Ben White on occasions. I wonder how many minutes they've played together. So we had to find other solutions, and that's been different. It's been a different way of playing, been less flow, less automatic movements. And you could say yourself, from a coaching perspective, he's done really, really well. But while probably getting more criticism, because we all disagree about certain players should play certain positions, for example. If you want to look at it from what has he not done so well, my feeling, you can definitely ask a question and you could say, have we evolved enough in attack? And I don't think we have. And so by that I mean, and I'm part of this as well, I just expected Saka to play all the time. I expected Havertz to just continue his growth, which he's done very good, to be honest. I thought Jesus would be a much better backup to Havertz than Eddie Nketiah. Now, Jesus struggled, then got some good form. Now we've lost him for a year. I didn't see Odegaard missing 10, 12 games, right? Didn't see that coming. Just expected Martinelli just to keep going and be the superstar 23-year-old. He had a low patch. Trossard a little bit inconsistent for a period. To see all of this happen at the same time, then you can say to yourself, have we evolved enough? Not just personnel-wise, but stylistically. Right? So Jamie Carragher did a fantastic bit of analysis on Monday Night Football. I'm learning to be less sensitive about analysis now from people, particularly from Northwest media. And the reason why, they're just highlighting what they see at that particular time. So he spoke about Odegaard. He spoke about him dropping outside of the block, receiving the ball deep. He said he needs to be higher, more central. Then loads of data about lack of central attack. Back to my thing about embracing who we are. We attack from wide areas. We go in, we go out. We go to wide areas, and then we break off the sides. So normally two people come out, and you can close your eyes. You can picture Saka just going past two people. And once we go past the wall on the outside, we are into the danger area. That's what we do. Back to embracing who we are. Just because other people go century, we don't. Now, when we got Ethan doing it, when we got Martinelli coming off the side and creating goals, no one questions what we do. Right? So take that on board and embrace it. Can we be more central on occasions? Absolutely. We know the guard drops deep and Rice is playing 6. We know why. Because Rice's ball progression is not as good as, say, Thomas Partey when he's playing right back. So what do? We counter that by bringing Odegaard deeper. So we know this because we're Arsenal nerds, right? We know this. Again, embrace the differences about how we play. But what we do need to do is make sure that we do take more of our chances to make our day easier. That comes back to attacking evolution. There's something missing in the group. I want to see it too, Not sure what it is, but when it arrives, I'll know it, But there's something missing there. That's the next step for Arsenal. It's obvious what's coming next. We're going to get a centre midfielder in the summer because we've got 2 oldies going out the door. We're going to get a central forward, maybe even a wide forward. It's coming. Right? So what does that look like? It's going to be so interesting to see what Arteta centre forward looks like. Because he's only bought Jesus and that's his mate. Right? So what does an Arsenal centre forward look like? And that's what I'm really excited for. I'd like to see it in January. I watched Ollie Watkins in the 2-2 so far. I tell you, he was fantastic. His movement, it shook me up. He unsettled our defenders. Think back to Ollie Watkins scored against Saliba at Villa away a couple of years ago. Who does that to Saliba? Takes him for a run in the right-hand channel and stops it bottom corner. Open your eyes now. Just think it through. Who's done that to him? Nobody. No one takes him for a run and scores. You know, so he's a good player and he would have been great for us, but it looks as though we can't get him out. He's going to be heartbroken. It looks as though we can't get him out, and that's a real shame because I think he's perfect for us where we are in our development, and we could have just then gone for a wide person in the summer, a first 11 wide person, and go from there. But here's what it is.
Yeah,
I can see someone in the comments saying
he came off injured, but I don't know if it's a serious injury.
It's not serious. It's not serious.
I don't think so. It's interesting what you say about his evolution up front, because one of the biggest pickles for a lot of fans, I say pickles, that's a minor word, but incensed fans. But even Andrew from Andrew Arsblog was on last week, and Elliot talked about it too. The lack of investment over the 5 years on attacking players.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we've seen what a prolific goal scorer can do. But it really is interesting what you said about Pep too, because, you know, these kind of $1 billion, you know, paycheck type of managers, but also, I mean, people kill Havertz, but Haaland doesn't contribute much if De Bruyne is not feeding him the ball. I don't know if that's harsh of me. And, you know, before we get to our final point, one of the things that a lot of listeners are saying, now we beat a poor Manchester City. Have you seen their squad? I mean, I just don't buy into that, Clive, at all. Have they regressed as a team? Yes, they've won a lot. They've played a lot of football, but come on.
Yeah, I honestly, at half time, or just after half time when they scored, the words on my row was, well, that's deserved. You know, they deserved it. But it almost it shook us up. And then we went from there. And for that moment on, it was like a perfect afternoon. I was not saying 5-1 when they equalised. No chance. You've got to be honest. I thought we allowed them to get into the game. I looked at what they were doing. I thought they were so smart how they used Marmoush to try to get us unsettled in the centre of the pitch. I thought Haaland was a threat without doing anything, but he's always there. You have to watch him. You have to manage him. Similar feeling watching Gyökeres play for Sporting Lisbon. You know he's there. You have to look out for him. You have to. And in the end, we did what we should have done, which is overpower them in the centre of the pitch by outrunning them. You know, and we did, and we took our chances, and everything looks great. Man City are going for evolution, so they just done 170, 180 million pounds. They've got a new centre midfielder out of Porto today, and they're coming back. They're not going to sit there. They are an angry club that feels they're being restricted by the establishment, and which we are number one enemy. We are it. They do not like Arsenal Football Club. No. And I knew they'd come and play their best against us, but until they didn't have the legs, you know. So we're at war with them. We're at war with them. And he's not going to go away. Pep's going to react. He's going to buy. He's going to coach his way out of this. And he's going to give it to Arsenal as soon as he can. But Arsenal, for once, are embracing who they are. They are not afraid. They are prepared to say, yep, we didn't like what you did to us at the Etihad. We didn't like it. And the fact that they did that celebration tells me that in the dressing room, they were going to let Haaland have it. The crowd was on tip-top form. He was getting it from every angle, and I'm totally behind it. We have to be brave enough to stand up for ourselves, right? And I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, embrace who we are. We've got to stand up for ourselves because the northwest of England feel they are the capital of football. And we are just this little inconsequential little club down south that never wins anything, that cracks under pressure. Well, we need to man up like we did yesterday a lot more often. And then celebrate it with chest, as the kids say. So with chest, celebrate it with chest. Don't be embarrassed. We're on our way, and it's going to be good when we finally get there. Hopefully.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when you see a player like Silva kicking out at Trossard, which by the way went unpunished, but there's no shocker there.
Normal.
I mean, he literally kicked him while he was down. When you see Gabriel and Haaland, by the way, Haaland was really enjoying the Gabriel, you know,
Yeah.
on
He
field.
likes it. He
Yeah.
loves it. And
Mhm.
Gabriel, do you think he's bothered about him with his upbringing? Do you think he's worried about a football battle? I don't think so. I
No,
don't think
exactly.
this is
Exactly.
easy work.
And I want to end with this because you know you've talked to Gary Neville about football. We've had Rebecca Lowe on the show who hosts. It's called Soccer, the USA version, and I joke with her. I say he's annoying as he appears, and he says things, and I just think it's for clickbait. I can't imagine someone as smart as him would say what he did about Gabriel and the ball and Haaland in the first game, and then criticize, this time around our behavior, what we're doing. He doesn't like it. I truly believe it's to rile people up and get people commenting on
Yeah.
social media. What's your take on all you tell us to embrace ourselves and all of that stuff? And sometimes it's really hard not to get stuck in and involved in that. Do you think they do it deliberately, or do you think he really believes that?
So how can I take this one? I have a lot of respect for both of them when they want to do things properly. Right. So Jamie Carragher, for example, he really studies. He studies the game. He studies coaches. His analysis. I've learned to not worry about every single word of it. Just listen to the overall message, what he's trying to say. Right. If I disagree, it doesn't really matter. He's presenting a picture. It's up to us to absorb it and in our own way. I'm not going to go back and say, yeah, but we did it because of that. That's being too sensitive. Don't be too sensitive. It's really important. So I know what he does. I know how smart he is. I know a lot about his background, his father's background. He's got a son that's playing football. This guy loves the game. He's a true lover of the game. Sometimes he says things for shock value and he labels things appropriately, which I think when he starts calling us Jose Mourinho team or Stoke team, whatever he says, that's really to get us all going, right? So we have to just let that one go. Gary Neville, what he's involved with in the Manchester area to bring that city forward. Do you think that happens because he's just somebody that's not intelligent? He's a highly intelligent guy with multiple businesses which he runs on a daily basis. He's regenerating a big part of Manchester behind that scheme. This guy's a serious guy. When he says stupid things about Gabriel, when Haaland threw the ball into Gabriel's head, he just sort of said it was funny. But when it's Gabriel, he's like, I thought it was disrespectful. And if we all jump down his throat, who's laughing? He's laughing at us. We just got to relax, focus on the football and winning games. Winning games and not being divided. That's really important. So that side of things, I do think we have to be less sensitive about. What I am more sensitive about is that they have a very influential platform. And that does impact our perception to the outside world. More importantly, I think it impacts our perception to referees. There are 28,000 registered referees in the country. There are 20 elite referees, and 80% of those referees come from Greater Manchester. Now, rather than worry about the decisions that we're always going to disagree with every single week, because we're all one-eyed and biased and sensitive, including myself, rather than use your platform to criticize a group of fans for standing up for themselves, but why are we not allowed to? Right? So why not look at that organization? Look at that organization, that lack of diversity. Look at the backgrounds of the people that are making decisions on a global game. How about looking at that? If I set those organizational figures to any other organization, they'll be audited. What's going on here? Why is not VAR a separate function to the referee function? Use your platform to really improve the game rather than protect people because you have contractual issues, etc., etc. So I'd love to see more of that because they're highly intelligent guys. They're highly intelligent. Don't fall for it. They're really intelligent guys and they have a huge influence. How that influence is used, for me, it's not always healthy. It doesn't always benefit us. And why would it? They're Liverpool, Manchester United. Why are they going to come around our club and say, oh, we want to push you forward? No chance. Absolutely no chance. We just have to be Arsenal. Embrace who we are, mate. Be
Yeah.
Arsenal.
It's funny because Ian Wright is probably beloved by opposing fans a lot more than Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, and I don't see him using his platform the same way. There's a little manipulation by the others. Ian comes at it from a different angle.
I think I got to know Ian, so I can talk from strength here. He's the only one though, isn't he? He's the only one out there, that's really fighting our corner, right? So he can't do everything. Do you see what I mean? He can't be seen to be that narrow. He works on football, not Arsenal football. He works on football across the board. So he can't be seen to be too overly protective, although he does a pretty good job, right? So there needs to be more like him. Theo Walcott's getting into the mainstream now. I think he's going to be interesting, what he does, and interesting watch his career. I do a little bit with Darren Bent. I know everyone thinks he's a Spurs player, but he's a big Arsenal man. He's developing into that environment as well. Martin Keowney's fighting with Simon Jordan every week. I'm not sure it's healthy for any of us. And so we just need more people that understand the game, that understand the club, and can create a balance to the Liverpool, Manchester United, Man City in the Northwest. And that's it. It's going to take time, but you have to develop that. Those voices, which you are one. Well,
I was about to say, totally different level. You have become one, and I think I deliberately sometimes, read comments on the YouTube section when you did it the first time, and the response from the Arsenal fandom, kingdom, community on a global level was like, wow, finally, we have someone who represents us. And for all the right reasons. And you don't see things through rose-colored glasses. You support your club. And I think the way you balance and handle the reality versus, the debate side of things is absolutely first class. And so when people hear you on Inside Gooners or The Overlap, you are and have become one of those voices that we know's got our back, that we can trust. But you also aren't afraid to speak your mind, whether it's transfers, whether it's how Mikel Arteta needs to be better, kind of managing up front, whether it's the owners needing to invest more. You have become that voice. And it's real for fans because you live it and breathe it the same way we do.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that in the first place. I think the most important thing for me is to be the same bloke you see here as you would see walking outside of Tollington. And I hope I'm the same person, right? So that's the most important thing. I'm very lucky that through the work that we do, I get a chance to meet a lot of people and get that connection. It's really, really important. The overlap stuff, I've enjoyed it up to a point. I'm a bit busy at work at the moment. I'm meant to go back next Monday, but I'm not sure if I can. But I also want to go back when it's right. And so I may have to just not do this next one, but I do recognize the reason why I go is to represent people in the best way I possibly can. I don't get paid, right? I don't get any money. I don't work for the club. I've got a job. I work for a bank. Right? So and so it's just to represent other people really and represent myself. It's the only reason why I do it. And but yeah, I've learned things through that experience. I've learned things, and I realize there's another world out there north of Watford, and I know what they think of us. It's important to put yourself in those spaces to understand how other people think about you. As a club, I think you can't just be so one-eyed and narrow. Something I try to do a lot of is spread myself around so I can see different types of football, including the women's football, including youth football, including non-league football, to keep myself connected to the game, so I have a broad set of opinions and structures to allow me to talk about it in a better way. That's all I'm trying to do. When it comes to Arsenal, it's very difficult, isn't it, man? Give me a sign today and I won't sleep for a week. Do you know what I mean? If it doesn't happen, we're going to be at each other's throats for a week. Do you know what I mean? It's just a shame, right? But we can't control that as watching fans. We can only want, If that want becomes too aggressive, then who's benefiting from that? It's other people laughing at us, right? I don't like being laughed at, right? So
I agree.
Next game.
I agree. And, it's like traveling. You travel to different countries to learn about different cultures, become worldly. And football is the same. You can't just have that tunnel vision. Being able to talk about it at a broadcast level requires, a lot of work. And I think sometimes people don't realize the work that goes into knowing. Because when you're live and you have to speak, there's no rolling the tape back and editing. So, but thank you for being the voice of reason. Thank you for always coming on the Highbury Squad. The next time we do this in, maybe at the end of the season, we're going to do pure Q&A from the listeners. So
Okay.
if you're up for that, I would love to do that with you.
I'm up for that.
And before you go, a quick prediction about that semi-final. Are we going to make it to Wembley in the League Cup?
Well, I went to the home game and it was their night, mate. From the moment they walked off into that pitch, it's not your night. It was their night. And it should have been a 1-goal deficit, but it was their night. So now we've got a 2-goal deficit. Can we do it? Well, I feel a lot more confident about it than I did on Sunday morning, because the lift everyone's got, we know what we got to do. Empty the tanks, 10 days off, Dubai, here we come. Can we go with a smile on the plane or not? That's what it's all about, really. We're in a better place, and Newcastle are not in the same place they were when they played us a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's on.
I agree. Their little runs dried up a little bit. Hopefully it will continue. Right. You can find Clive. Remember, I always say this: if you're living under a rock, the Arsenal Vision podcast, of course, you can follow him here at Clive F. Palmer and follow the podcast as well. Thank you, Clive, as always, for your time. We really appreciate you. Squaddies, look out on the YouTube community page for the next live show. Some more great guests coming up. Until then, I hope you've enjoyed this one. Tell your friends about it. And don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. At ease, at ease.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.